We've got some catching up to do with the Johnson City story of Shawn Williams. Shawn Williams is a serial R-word accused of essaying over 50 victims, including children. His trial is currently set for October 22nd after a bunch of pushbacks, and he's already gone through one trial for 2 attempted prison escapes, and we're going to cover that in a separate video, where he actually represented himself pro se, and to call a spade, he did make a good argument and was acquitted of one of the charges, but found guilty of the other attempted really successful escape. So we'll go over that in a separate video. This video is going to focus on something that Zion42, shout out to Zion42, pinged me in on. And that's in relation to city manager Cathy Ball. She had attempted to purchase a condo when she took this position in Johnson City. And she made a press conference about 2 months ago at this point saying, oh my gosh, when I found out that it was actually Shawn Williams' condo, I backed out of the deal. I didn't know. Well, it seems there may be some text messages that now suggest otherwise. So here's a story on what happened there. So first, we're going to look back at June 26, 2024. The first story. We're going to hear what Cathy Ball said.
I've asked you here for the purpose of...
So this is her voluntarily coming forward to make sure the press comes out squeaky clean.
Of being transparent and forthcoming was an unfortunate coincidence.
Johnson City's city manager Cathy Ball sitting down with reporters and explaining her connection with accused serial rapist Shawn Williams. She had moved to the area from North Carolina and wanted to live downtown. She entered a contract to buy the 5th floor condominium in this building, which was being sold by Williams. As closing drew near, it was disclosed that he was a fugitive.
I immediately withdrew my offer for purchase of this condominium, and I did not buy the condominium. I knew that the owner's name was Shawn Williams. At that point in time, that name did not mean anything to me.
At the time, Williams was wanted by the Johnson City Police Department for being in possession of a firearm and ammunition as a convicted felon. This condo is the center of many of Williams' alleged crimes, based partly on video from cameras set up in the condo, which authorities claim captured his crimes, and where a woman fell from his window and survived.
I did not have any communication with Shawn Williams. I have never met Shawn Williams. I have never talked to Shawn Williams. No money ever exchanged hands.
Ball reminded us that just 2 months after pulling out of the contract, the first of 2 federal civil lawsuits against the city and members of the police department was filed. Public documentation shows Ball was deposed in June.
I recently learned that the plaintiff's attorney have requested additional information about this condominium, and I want to come forward to the community and share the information that I have to make sure that the facts are released accurately.
So might that explain the timing of sitting down to do this press conference?
Ball left the room quickly, not accepting any questions. The city is being hesitant considering the current litigation involving the city, police department, and Williams.
But then there was a new filing in August in the class action suit against Johnson City, where there's text messages that allegedly contradict the claims that Cathy Ball made in that press statement. So here in this update from the Chattanooga Free Times Press, Johnson City's chief administrator made false and misleading statements about her efforts to purchase a condo from an accused sex offender at the center of a widening police corruption scandal, new filings in a class action lawsuit say. City manager Cathy Ball told reporters in June, which we just watched, she had unwittingly entered a contract to buy the condo in 2022 from Shawn Williams, the former Johnson City businessman who has since been implicated in scores of sexual assaults against women and children. She contended she withdrew the offer once she learned who Williams was. Text messages between Ball and her real estate agent, submitted in federal court on Friday, appear to contradict those claims. Ball was pursuing the real estate deal, a 3,000 square foot downtown penthouse apartment for a below market price that had not been publicly listed. Williams was a fugitive allegedly being sought by Johnson City Police, whom Ball directly oversees. The former Johnson City businessman is now behind bars. A trio of lawsuits accused Johnson City Police of public corruption, including allegations cops took kickbacks to protect Williams, even as he allegedly sexually assaulted dozens of women and young children. The crimes allegedly took place inside the condo Ball was attempting to buy. Now, if you're new to this, I have like a 6-part story, really 7, because we also look at a new lawsuit filed by the woman that fell from his 5-story condo window. A link to that playlist in the description if you want to get the deep dive into how we got here. But as it relates to Cathy Ball and her condo cleanup, she's saying it meant nothing. This is a quote from what we just watched. "I want to make it clear that when I learned that the person was a fugitive, I withdrew my offer for the purchase of the contract." Ball noted she walked away from the deal months before the first of 3 civil lawsuits were filed containing explosive allegations against Williams and the police. Until then, Williams had been charged with illegally possessing ammunition. He had fled Johnson City before arrest on those charges. Instead of withdrawing her offer, the texts show it was Williams who walked away from the deal, not Ball. Yes, we're going to read that again. Instead of withdrawing her offer, the texts show it was Williams who walked away from the deal, not Ball. Up until the day before Ball was set to close on the deal, she and her real estate agent were texting back and forth about the closing, with Ball asking for updates. Quote, "I've checked email and called the seller multiple times. No response. I'm afraid closing will not take place tomorrow. I'm terribly sorry." Read a May 31st text sent to Ball from Shannon Castillo, the real estate agent. Ball was scheduled to close on the condo June 1st. An individual Williams granted power of attorney would have completed the transaction on his behalf, texts show. Ball also reiterated in her comments to reporters and in a sworn legal deposition that the name Shawn Williams meant nothing to her at the time she entered into a purchase contract with him. Text messages, however, refer to information Ball and her real estate agent knew of Williams' background. In one text message to a real estate agent dated April 25th, 2022, Ball said she had withheld information about Williams from a home inspector. "I did not tell Michael the story behind Shawn," Ball wrote. In another message, Castillo, the agent, told Ball she would talk to the real estate attorney handling the deal about Williams. "I will fill her in on all the details regarding the seller." Until Williams walked away from the deal, he freely communicated with Ball's real estate agent via text about the sale of his condo while he was a fugitive from justice, the texts reveal. Nowhere in the legal record of the case does Ball say she reported her business transactions with a known fugitive to the police. The record does show that Ball texted then former Chief of Police Carl Turner regarding her plans to purchase the property. Text messages introduced into court show Ball asked Turner for a report of crime history in the neighborhood of Williams' condo to see how safe the area is. In her text to the chief, under scrutiny for his own conduct in the Williams case, Ball does not give the specific address of the condo or specifically name Williams as a seller via their texts, but refers to the condo in shorthand by street name. Turner then supplied a detailed list of all crimes committed around Williams' condo. Ball has the power to initiate an internal affairs investigation for the past 2 years that could scrutinize the actions and conduct of those implicated in the Williams case, including herself. Instead, Ball has ordered any internal investigation to be put on hold until the resolution of the class actions lawsuit, court records show. Now, this is very interesting because in those other 6 parts, we have done a lot of looking through the statements that Ball has made, the things that she says. And she's always saying, "I welcome the investigation. Let the investigation do its job. Let the courts do its job." Instead, Ball has ordered any internal investigation to be put on hold until the resolution of the class action lawsuit, court records show. Neither Ball nor Castillo responded to a request for comment about the text messages. So, I get legally it's a good strategy to not offer things up, right? But you're also pitching transparency and acting like you're sitting down and willing to tell all back in June. So, next section says deliberately misleading. The text messages are the latest twist in a class action lawsuit against Johnson City and its police department by women, referred to only as Jane Does in legal documents, seeking to hold officials accountable for allegedly shielding a serial R-word and failing his victims. The suit has also revealed the existence of a federal investigation into Johnson City Police Department, noting in filings that attorneys for the victims have provided hundreds of pages of emails to a federal prosecution team. The Department of Justice has previously declined to confirm the existence of such a probe. And so then we get a summary that the 3 lawsuits are from former U.S. Prosecutor Kateri Dahl. The second is the class action suit with the Jane Does, and then the third is the lawsuit from Michaela Johnson, the woman that fell from the window. The latest filing containing Ball's text messages is part of a renewed request by victims' attorneys to bar Ball from making further public comments about the case, because Cathy Ball, in previous comments, tried to make a comparative fault argument, which means that the victims are partially to blame. It's a legal argument. She went into details that the victims, the Jane Does, and she grouped them all together, were under the influence while the things that they allege to have occurred. And ever since she tried to blame all the victims, both the victims and their advocates are like, "Judge, stop this, put a stop to this." Like, it's not even facts and evidence. So here the article goes on. Ball's statements were deliberately misleading, intended to manipulate the public narrative, and intended to serve personal public relations goals, victims' attorneys alleged. They are also seeking sanctions against the city defense attorneys to the extent they participated in Ball's news conference by alerting her to upcoming legal filings. Because remember, Cathy Ball got up there and said, "We haven't actually got the formal filing yet." It is not the first time Ball's public comments have featured in the ongoing case. And then we get the throwback here that in August of 2023, in this news conference, Ball told reporters some of the women who filed suit were partially at fault for their assaults because they consumed and partook of illegal drugs. And I went down a small rabbit hole of a rant when we were looking at this in detail. But really, the interesting part of this is typically it's the city and the police department that are supposed to protect victims in cases like this. Prosecutors are usually fighting a defense attorney's argument. The defense attorney that's representing the accused, the one who allegedly committed some kind of assault against someone who may have been drinking. The defense attorney is usually the one who's saying, that person, they don't remember. They were consuming alcohol and illicit drugs. And the prosecutors, the state, are usually the ones saying, like, that's a garbage argument. That's victim blaming. But here the role has reversed. Now it's the city, through Cathy Ball, making this argument against the Jane Doe victims. So that's one of the reasons there's just a lot of interesting layers about everything that's going on in Johnson City and how the roles are kind of reversed a little bit. And then this article describes, that the Jane Does were able to hold their own news conference and address their remarks. That is where this picture comes from up here. And we get a quote here from that press conference that survivors deserve to be treated with respect. One of the plaintiffs, identified in the suit only as Jane Doe, said, "For a woman in Cathy Ball's position of power to say publicly that victims are at fault when we didn't have the ability to defend ourselves, it was a punch in the gut." And remember, the type of victims we're talking about include someone that was pushed. And this is all relating to the civil suit with the Jane Does, but the criminal charges against Shawn Williams include, they found a USB drive, 2 USB drives taped together. And on there, different detectives, not from Johnson City Police Department, because they sat on this thumb drive for like a couple years doing nothing. But on this thumb drive, there's allegedly video and photo footage of over 50 victims. Many appear to be unconscious while Shawn Williams is essaying them. Some of these victims also include very young children. And somehow, in response to the civil suit, this is the response that we're getting from the city manager. Comparative fault. That they are partially at fault. The victims are partially at fault. So I don't really know how Cathy Ball can PR her way out of this one. But that's my opinion. You guys are welcome to offer an opposing view or share your thoughts on what you think. And again, deep dive into the beginning of this story from all the way back when Shawn Williams was being referred to by the pseudonym Robert Vaux, before he was identified, all the way through his first attempted arrest, where he kind of just like went out the fire escape on his condo while police stood outside like dummies for 45 minutes, all while he's on the call with 911 trying to find out why police are at his door, and the police are saying they think they hear him talking inside. He stand outside bumbling around for 45 minutes, climbs out the fire escape, becomes a fugitive, and all the craziness. It just gets crazier and crazier the more you dive into this story. I can't really squeeze it into a 60-second summary, but a deep dive is linked in the description. I will do a video to catch up on what happened with his pro se representation in the escape and updates as we approach the October 22nd criminal case for these major charges. But it's really a crazy story going on in Johnson City Police Department. I'm waiting to see updates from a hearing that happened on Friday. I'm recording this on a Sunday, but there was a hearing in the civil case, the Jane Doe case. And I'm waiting for more information. I'm waiting to see if I can see like a document or order, a written order from the judge. But in the civil case, the judge just denied a request for financial records from former police officers that are named in the suit. Although back in April, the Jane Does, the attorneys for Jane Does, were able to submit some discovery with the woman that was helping Shawn Williams manage his business affairs, showing that she was invoicing $2,000 payments weekly to some police officers, and that there were exchanges, emails from those police officers trying to coordinate and organize protection for this woman to keep her safe. So we looked into that April discovery in part 6. So if you want to jump right to that and learn more about the extortion scheme, go to part 6. But other than that, the next video will get us caught up on the legal actions, both on the criminal and civil side. So this was a PR Crunch recap, really brought to you by Zion42. So shout out to Zion. It's just crazy to watch how Johnson City Police Department, and now Cathy Ball personally, really it seems like personal PR, are trying to say they're being transparent and proactive on one hand, but on the other side, we're finding out that's not so much the case. But turning the floor over to you guys, let me know what you think, and let me know if you've been following this case, if you just heard about it, and how you're wrapping your mind around the details. You guys all have a good one until next time. Take care.